You're listening to the HNC Let's Talk podcast, hosted by Dexter Brooks. Thanks for tuning in to HNC Let's Talk podcast. We partner with subject matter experts to provide candid conversations on health and lifestyle. Here at HNC Let's Talk podcast, mental, physical, spiritual, financial, and health are all connected. This episode of HNC Let's Talk podcast is sponsored by HealthNet Co. Together, we make insurance simple.
Hello, I'm Dexter Brooks, and I'm your host with HNC Let's Talk podcast. And I'm very excited today because today is Monday, and we have a brand new guest from where? East Coast, Florida. Yeah. My man's name is Tavarus Hogans. And Tavarus is the founder of True 7 CBD. He studied at Vanderbilt University, majored in communications, and was captain of the football team. His company, True 7 Life, works with individuals and organizations looking to make their employees more comfortable and confident presenters. Currently working on his debut book, Finding Your Voice, A Journey of Becoming a Better Presenter. Tavarus, are you with us today?
I am with you, and I'm happy to be here, Dexter. Thanks for having me. And what an introduction.
Hey, man, what can I tell you? You know, you're on the East Coast. That's my hometown, East Coast. I'm originally from Georgia. So it's like, hey, there's a Florida guy down there.
Awesome. Well, we're holding it down for you over here on the East Coast.
Awesome, man. So tell us a little bit about your business. I mean, this is pretty interesting. You have True 7 CBD, and then you have True 7 Life Works. So True 7 Life Works. So what's the difference between those two?
Yeah, so, I can't speak for most entrepreneurs, but I knew I wanted to get out of the corporate space. And as I was transitioning, I didn't have all of the plan. I had been given a couple different visions, do this and do that, but I wasn't really seeing how it was all going to marry together. I ended up going to a CBD conference and getting information there because I was given the vision to create a CBD line. And from there, I had a podcast conference scheduled. And interestingly enough, at the podcast conference, I met a publishing company that I ended up doing a book deal with. And I was sitting down that night speaking with that publisher, and it all started to come together. And what kind of birthed out of all of that is 2 services and 2 products. And it's actually backed up by 2 podcasts, interestingly enough. But the 2 services that we provide at True 7 Life is presentation skills coaching. We've got the book coming out late summer to back that up, Finding Your Voice. And we also do podcast coaching. And with that, I've been podcasting corporately for about a year and a half now. And True 7 Life will launch its first podcast April 7th. We've got a great guest set for that April 7th episode. And then I'm also doing another podcast called Beyond the Stars that's launching May 31st. So,
wow, man, you got a full plate going on there.
Yeah. So you know what they say about idle minds, and not that I just wanted to be busy, but coming out of the corporate space and this being my transition year, honestly, I wanted to push my boundaries and just see how far I could go and see how much I could handle.
Absolutely.
I'll never know how far I can go if I never push the boundaries. So this year, I'm really just pushing my boundaries.
Well, I would definitely say congratulations. I know launching a podcast can be somewhat stressful, especially when you're doing that first one.
Absolutely. So I kind of had a soft landing. The company that I currently podcast for, I was hosting their podcast for 18 months. And I had the easy route. All I did was get on the mic and ask questions and interview. I didn't have to do any editing. I didn't have to come up with, the artwork and the show notes and all of that. So I thought I had this podcast thing figured out. But to your point, whenever you do your own show and your own episode, there's a lot more behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, there's a lot more behind the scenes. And then you think about people that has these large podcasts, and you say they got a big staff, and you go, oh yeah, now you know why you got the staff. because there's a lot of work in there.
Yeah, there are definitely some people that are doing some great things. And, to that point, about a week or two ago, I don't even remember exactly where I got the intel from, but I know in order to go where I'm supposed to go in the direction that I'm supposed to be in, these different arms that I have represented, or umbrella, I like to call it, they're going to have leadership. So in order for True 7 Life and True 7 to get where it's supposed to be, it's going to take an army. So we will be looking for a team.
It does definitely take an army. So now we're talking CBD. We're talking Florida. We're talking the Bible Belt. How does that play into that Bible Belt philosophy?
Interesting enough, we talk about the Bible Belt, and I'm from North Florida, being from Georgia, being from the South, there are a lot of similarities. And, I went to Vanderbilt University, definitely the heart of the Bible Belt, and now living in Jacksonville. I have to be honest, man. I haven't had a lot of impact from the Bible Belt. Maybe it's because I'm not making enough noise right now. But I previously lived in Tampa, and one difference I can say between Jacksonville and Tampa is I feel like in Jacksonville, people aren't in your business and concerned about what you're doing. Everybody's more concerned about living their lives and not trying to one up the next person and all of that. So I will say, since being here in Jacksonville, I've gotten more support than, quote unquote haters, as some people would say. So for me, I don't know if being in the Bible Belt has anything to do with it, but my journey has been fairly successful being here in Jacksonville.
Well, good. That's a big change. I mean, like I say, I'm from the South. I'm originally from Georgia. I've been in Colorado now for 16 years. And, Colorado was the first state to officially legalize cannabis. And so when that happened in Colorado, it was like, oh man, I'm from a state that, that's something that you don't get nearby, you don't touch, you don't go, you don't go around and all this stuff right here. I remember day one taking the public transit and seeing this guy with this huge blunt behind his ear on day one of the pitch lunch.
Right.
I'm like, well, here it comes. But see, the only thing that changed was the fact that, how if you take public transit, if someone smokes, as a smoker, you smell the nicotine. Mm-hmm. Now you just smell the weed.
Right.
That's it. And there's certain areas in town that if you drive, it's like you go through this big puff of weed smoke, and it's like you don't see it, but you can smell it. And the CBD market has been booming. I don't truly understand it, so I'm gonna touch base with you on that because I don't understand. Like I've been told there's certain CBD oils or creams or gels or whatever that work for certain medical conditions, versus taking an aspirin. So how would a person know? Say, for instance, if I got spasms in my left shoulder, which oil would work best for me? How would a person know? Would they just sit down with you as a consultation, or how does that really work?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily have a medical background, but having medical people in my surrounding, and I do have a background in education, and I feel like education is very important. And when I was meeting with different manufacturers, education was definitely one of those things that would break any ties between one manufacturer versus the other. And at True 7 CBD, we set out to be some of the most educated CBD companies in the business. And for us, it is similar to doing a consultation. Like, it's not just, oh, I have this pain, let me give you, this oil, let me give you this gummy. Like, we try to diagnose, understand underlying causes of it, because for me, sometimes it's not a CBD issue. So CBD is the I wouldn't say it's the last line of defense, because it is a natural product, but we want to make sure that they're a good customer for CBD, because we're not interested in selling product one time. We want to sell products multiple times. We want to change people's lives. So with the different products, you have oils, you have tinctures, you have topicals, you have, sublinguals. And I don't want to get too technical, but you talk about, when this stuff gets tested and they come up with the efficacy rates, efficacy talks about how these natural products will react in a controlled situation. But the thing is, same as Tylenol, same as aspirin, same as anything else, it's going to vary per individual. So even when we make a recommendation, we start with lower dosages to see how their body handles it. And when we talk about, efficacy and bioavailability, how much of this product is actually being absorbed? How quick is it getting in your system? How long do you need it to be in your system? Those are some of the types of questions, that we ask, because we can then, if they need something quick, we can recommend something like, a vape or a flower or a product that you can inhale. You're going to get it in there a lot quicker. It has, you're going to absorb a high amount of the product, but it's not going to have as long of an effect. So we may recommend something that has, a quick onset effect, but not a delayed effect. So we'll recommend another product like, an oral product that has more of a lingering effect.
Okay.
So for example, you'll take something that lasts 2 hours, but then an hour later, you want to take something that's going to kick in whenever that starts to wear off, and it'll have a longer lasting effect.
Okay.
So there's more that goes into it than just, take this CBD oil. We've got 41 SKUs. We've got topicals. We've got a cosmetic line. We've got bath bombs. We've got oils. We've got gummies, and we have, smokable products.
And what does the cosmetic actually does? I mean, how is it? Because I've never known there was a CBD cosmetic line. What does I mean? Give me an example. Is like eye cream, something for zits, or eye serum for eczema and skin disease and different things like that. CBD helps with controlling some of those behaviors also. Wow! So I never knew that. This is like I'm gonna have to dig a little bit more deeper into that, because I'm curious to see how. I mean, you get a lot of people may replace Botox.
Yeah, interestingly enough, so here's the thing. My wife, she's the owner of Hello Smooth, and she does Botox. So, we don't want to be a house divided. We're not necessarily trying to replace Botox. We want to support and supplement Botox. Let's just say it that way.
Okay, so we won't go down the Botox line, so y'all marriage to stay safe, okay? So we'll just leave it alone.
Yeah, I gotta sleep at night.
So tell me about the book that you got coming out. What is that all about?
Yeah, so the book, it's been an interesting journey with this book. It's been a process, but for the last 3 years, I was in learning and development, and the most requested training was presentation skills. And for whatever reason, we didn't deliver a lot of presentation skills, but I think the number 2 fear in the world is the fear of public speaking. So I knew I wanted to write a book, and I wanted to test the waters, and it seemed like presentation skills was a general topic and something to easily get my first book out with. So I made the decision to write the book to support all of the presentation skills requests that we were getting. Part of my journey those last 3 years And I believe why I'm qualified to write a book like this. And even today, like I struggled with the journey of presenting. I struggled, and even still today struggle with anxiety and nervousness and those different types of things. And the book is coming from a perspective of someone that has been in those shoes. A lot of people that are teaching presentation skills, they hadn't dealt with nervousness, anxiety, and all of that. So for me, it's just coming from a different perspective. They can't have empathy when it comes to people that are dealing with that and struggling with that. But as I got better over these last 3 years, what I realized is for much of my professional career, I would be in meetings and I would hear something that I didn't agree with, but because I was too nervous to speak up, I wouldn't say anything. Somebody would say, hey, this is what we're doing, and we'd be in a team environment, and I wasn't confident or comfortable enough to speak up. So as I went on my journey of becoming a better presenter, I was able to find my voice. And as I found my voice, I was able to speak up for myself and not let everybody dictate terms to me. So as I was writing the book, it was generic, and I was getting ready to, I literally was getting ready to almost put it out. And then I went back through it, and it didn't have me in it. And I just knew I couldn't ask anyone to give me a nickel if I wasn't true to myself in the book. So I changed the title of the book, and the book is called Finding Your Voice. And it's a bit about a journey. It's a bit about my journey of finding my voice by becoming a better presenter.
Awesome. That's really great. Now, when is the book supposed to be released?
So, for about the last 4 days, literally, I've been on these last 2 chapters. I had some stuff that I had to move around in a couple chapters. They just didn't flow right. And I hadn't been able to print it and look at it the way that I would like to look at it. But I'm going to be done with all of the self-editing in the next 48 hours. But we can expect print. We can expect print this summer. It's probably going to be a launch in August, mid-August launch. We'll do a little bit of press release and all of that good stuff, but we can expect it mid-August.
Well, definitely let us know how that's going to work out, because we would like to have you on the show again, and so we can talk about that book and get that book out there. Yeah, I'm sure you're going to have it on Amazon and everywhere else, and Barnes and Noble.
Absolutely, we'll have Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all digital outlets. We'll have an audio book coming a little bit later, shortly later, not too long down the road. There'll be a workbook to go with it also, but I'd be honored to come back to the show and do a little bit of publicity behind it.
I mean, that's because I personally, I know, like I said, the public speaking thing, it can be challenging. When you got thousands of people and you up there and you're going, the worst part of it is when the FAQ sessions.
Yes.
That's the worst part of public speaking. Because people come back and ask you a question, and then if they don't like your answer, then they challenge you.
Yeah. I'm going to give away some quick tips for public speaking, because different people struggle with different things. My top 3 tips are preparation, authenticity, and engagement. Preparation for me is number 1. A lot of the nervousness comes from not being prepared. Mm-hmm. Secondary to that, authenticity. When you're up there and you're not being yourself, it's not going to be comfortable. So you have to be authentic. And then engagement for me is ways that you can bring the audience in. It's ways to make the audience a bit more comfortable. But with the Q&A can definitely be challenging. What I try to do, if there's an opportunity for Q&A, I try to think of some questions that I may get from the audience, and then try to prepare and prep for those questions, those potential questions. And here's one thing I do. I take it a bit further. And this is what people rarely do. They try to block it out of their mind. but I try to think of 5 questions that I don't want to get from the audience. We think, for whatever reason, we think if we don't think of those questions or we don't address them, that they won't be asked. They're most certainly going to be asked. So we have to pre-plan how we're going to respond to those questions. And then from an engagement standpoint, when I do a Q&A, if someone hits me with something that I may not be an expert on, I throw it back to the audience and I ask, is there an expert in the audience? And what that does is allow somebody else in the audience to engage. I hear what they say, and then I have the final say on it. So I can say, well, yeah, just like what Dexter said, X, Y, Z, even though Dexter was the expert.
Those are some good points. Those are some great points. Definitely are some great points. So I hope people listen to that because, like I say, public speaking is a big thing. I jumped into podcasting, and for me, podcasting was a big thing. Because one thing about podcasting, when you actually can hear yourself, how you speak, the way you sound, and then you go back and go, oh man, do I really sound that bad? You know?
Yeah, so, when I do podcast coaching, one of our exercises is, listen, just start recording your voice and get used to hearing it, because there aren't many people that like the sound of their voice, especially when they initially hear it. So one of the first lessons is just get used to hearing your voice.
Yeah. After a while, I think by the time I got to the 10th episode, I was finally comfortable. And I used to do the intro as well. And then I realized it would be better to have the intro done separately because it sounds much better. And then you come in without you basically being the intro, then the host, then the introduction of the guest. That's a lot. So I like it like it is now. But
absolutely. And it's appealing for the listener, to hear that voice, and then you come in on the transition.
That change, that transition and that change is much better. I like that idea.
Look at Dexter, the podcast coach. Look at you.
Hey, I'm not a coach, but I can tell you, it's been a journey, but I definitely enjoy it. I highly recommend most people do it, especially if you're an introvert. It'll actually bring you out of your shell.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, because introvert doesn't like to be around a lot of people. So that you can do a podcast anywhere.
Right,
and
right.
I'm sure they got a lot of things they want to talk about. So not to look for the more competition in the podcasting field, but because there's a lot out there.
Yeah, podcasting actually is good for introverts. I'm doing a talk at a podcast conference, and it's top 10 tips to survive a podcast conference. And as a sidebar, I do have tips for introverts, because at conferences it's easier for extroverts, but for introverts it could be a little bit different. So yeah, that is a good point that you make about introverts.
So let's talk a little bit about, since you're employed, I'm not going to pull away from what you got going on with the company, the True 7 Life and the True 7 CBD. I'm still a little bit confused though, so let me just touch on. I'm still a little bit confused about the two, because they're basically two separate companies. They're two different companies, correct?
So True 7 Life is the umbrella company. True 7 CBD is up under that. So I mentioned a little bit in the intro. I'll clear it up. There are two products and there are two services. The two services is presentation skills coaching and podcast consulting. The two products is the book and the CBD line.
Okay. It's better it makes more sense when you say that umbrella, which is the top of the chain, so we know that makes more sense. That's like us, like HNC. So HNC, like there's HealthNet Co., which is actually the top of the umbrella. Then there's HNC Let's Talk Podcast, which is basically a subsidy of that.
Yeah. And the podcast, it really supports, both of them. We get into a little dialogue about it, but it's so new. I don't even know what direction the podcast is going to take on. Basically, I'm interviewing what I call self-employed business heroes and more so talking about their journey than we are talking about, True 7 and True 7 life. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, one thing about podcasting is it sort of blossoms to be it blossoms to be its own. Because when I started Agency Let's Talk podcast, it focused on insurance, healthcare benefits, that type of thing. But then I realized there was more to it than just insurance. So now we've changed it and broadened it out to the point where it focuses on mental, physical, spiritual, financial, and health, because we feel all those are interconnected. If one suffers, they all suffer.
Yeah. And I do like that. I was listening as the intro came on, mental, physical, spiritual, financial, and health. And it has to be a similar mindset and a similar attitude when you address all of them, because they tie together. When you're in it mentally in a good place, your body can physically respond, and when you're spiritually in a good place, the same thing. And we talk about physical fitness, but nowadays we have to talk about mental fitness also.
Absolutely.
One of the bishops, a guy that I know, he talks about mental floss and not being afraid to talk to somebody about whatever could be going on mentally. Like we've got to debunk the stigmas around going and having conversations with people. I feel like I've got all of my rocks, but I still like to get a second opinion, and I still like to understand behaviors that can help keep me mentally clear and mentally on pace and all those other things.
I mean, that's really true. And one thing I can tell you, the African American community has always had this stigma about mental health. And
correct.
And I tell people, if you think you need to go see someone, go see someone. There's no stigma. It's okay to sit down and talk about what may be causing you problems or things that you don't really understand. It's better to get it out than to hold it in.
Yeah, and so honestly, not that I don't have anything that I can share with a therapist or whatever, but I go and see someone, and I don't want to pawn it off on this, but a part of why I took the initiative to go and see someone is there are people that I coach and mentor and look up to me, and I hope they say, you know what, if Tavarus Hogans, who quote unquote looks like he has it all together, if he's going to see somebody, maybe it's okay for me to go and see somebody.
Absolutely.
And I have no shame in saying that at all.
And so that is so important that people know that, mental health, especially thinking about now, people with all this, what are we in? I don't know what day it is now. We're in the stay-at-home day 12, 13. Well, actually,
right.
it's 14 because tomorrow is 15. Tomorrow says the day 14.
Quarantine.
And a lot of people have not adjusted to the idea of working from home, being at home 24/7, and the stress that it can cause on the mind. You get bored and you figure out what you're going to do, what's going to happen, and you figure out your mind starts thinking more than it should. Speaking of that, how are things down in Florida? I haven't heard too many things about issues in Florida. I heard issues every state but Florida.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know that I can say Florida is exempt. I mean, it's definitely not exempt. We've got cases here just like everywhere. I can't speak for the whole state, but I've gotten out and driven around just, for my own mental sanity and all of that. One thing that is maybe a bit troublesome is the first couple days, and I was only out one day, there wasn't much traffic. But it seems like as this thing goes on, people are less and less serious about it. And me personally, I hadn't had a conversation with known anybody that had known someone that had any cases. So a lot of times, if it doesn't come home, it's not real to you. Interestingly enough, someone that I do business with, their uncle had a case and their sister had a case.
Wow.
And just having that conversation and hearing the symptoms and hearing how, they dealt with it was a bit more eye-opening for me. And fortunately, they seem like they're coming out on the other side of the cases, but it's just something that, the mandate is to stay at home as much as you can, stay away from people, make sure your hygiene is how it needs to be. And we need to take that serious. Another question was, how is Florida? Florida probably needs to be a little bit more obedient to the process.
To the stay at home.
Absolutely. There's too much traffic out there, and it's not the essential people either.
Are you serious? I mean, because I noticed as soon as the governors did the stay at home, the very next day, I noticed the flow of traffic had decreased. And this morning I went to the grocery store at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I didn't realize it was seniors from 7 to 8.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a line. And they only allow 75 people in the grocery store at any time. And I'm like, they have really gotten really serious with this, distancing. And it hits home when you see that, because the grocery stores in Colorado are like, oh no, they're friendly.
Right.
You run into people, you sit there, you're talking, everybody's talking, you grab a Starbucks, you grab something there, you still walk. But now it's like robotic, nope, gotta go this way, you get. And trust me, man, when I go, I put my mask on, I have my gloves on, and people are like, why? I said, because think about it. When HIV came out, the thing to protect you was condoms.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to protect you now? Your gloves, your mask.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, we don't know. So, take it as serious as we can until we know.
Thank you.
Because there could be people carrying it with no symptoms and all of that. You don't know what effect you're having on other people. It's not just about you. So,
the biggest thing.
Hopefully somebody.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, hopefully someone will hear this and take it a bit more serious.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing with me was the fact that there's no cure, there's no treatment. Anytime you tell me there's no cure, there's no treatment, that's the biggest red flag in the world. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's when you know, stay back. No cure, no treatment. I can't do nothing for you. That's weird, man. But
yeah, I mean, we're just treating symptoms.
We're just treating symptoms. That's as best as we can. And
we do a lot of that here.
And I wonder, I really wonder when you think about that, how many people have tried CBD? Some type of inhaler to try to clear it. Because I read that after China had their peak, they did autopsies, and they said the mucus that was inside the lung was so thick, air couldn't even flow through it.
Wow.
And when I read that, I was like, whoa, this is so serious.
That is crazy.
So I'm thinking now there's a CBD inhaler that may like expand the lungs or break up mucus. Who knows? We never know what they may be working on at, the FTC, what may be going on. We know they're testing different drugs, but CBD may be something that they're testing as well.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say about our line, it's terpene based. So a lot of our...
What do you mean by terpene based?
So terpenes are organic aromatic compounds that are produced by a variety of plants. So terpenes, there are terpenes in insect repellent, different things like that. They have different types of effect, different benefits, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, antibacterial, different things like that. And different terpenes have different effects. Some are stress reducers. Some help you sleep better. Some, I don't want to claim that it reduces the growth of cells, but there's been anecdotal evidence that say some terpenes can reduce the growth of cells, and they occur naturally. Some have been known to help with heartburn and gastro reflex and digestive tract issues and different things like that.
Wow. So what does your packaging look like?
Our packaging is pretty interesting. We chose to go with what I like to call a unique packaging. Whenever we did our market research, most of the packaging was a basic off-the-shelf round bottle. And in order to stick out on the shelf, we knew we were going to have to do something a little bit unique and different. So we've got a square bottle or a rectangular bottle that we put our product in. And it's a lot darker than your typical product. We made it darker to protect it from the sunlight. It has a little bit of a UV coating to protect the product that's in here from the sun's rays and harsh rays.
So that actually, I understand sometimes with that, when you use a darker coating to protect from the sun, it's sort of like also extend the life of the product.
Absolutely. And the thing is, some of these products aren't cheap. So, if someone makes a mistake and leaves it in their car or leaves it somewhere where it's going to get a lot of light, we want to do what we can, to help to prolong the effectiveness and the usage of the product.
So what is the how do they put it? I was about to say life expectancy, but it's actually shelving expectancy. How long can a product can actually stay on the shelf and still be considered as potent enough to use?
Yeah, and again, we're going to talk about efficacy because we can only test in a controlled environment, but we guarantee our products for 2 years, a 2-year shelf life on our products.
Well, that's long enough.
Yeah. I mean, you should go through it. You'll probably go through it in less than a year.
Yeah, because if you have a prescription and you've had a prescription in your closet and in your cabinet for like 2 years, you need to trash it anyway. But that's long enough,
Right.
So yeah, that's pretty good.
And the product, well, I don't even want to say that, but yeah, 2 years.
Okay, now what is it that you're not sharing with the audience today that you're not going to share?
The statement that I was going to make.
The statement that you was going to make.
Yeah. So I mean, even with those drugs that you have in your cabinet, they expire in 2 years. But if you had a headache and you took that product, there's a good chance that it would still work.
Yeah.
Your meat has a date on it, but if the meat's not bad, you can still eat the meat.
That is a true point. That is a true point.
That's all I'm saying.
That is definitely a true point. Because I know I've had things, prescriptions that may be in the cabinet, and I look and I go, oh man, let me try this, and it still works. It's been there for 2 years, but it still works.
Yeah, and a lot of times that's the purchase by date, but sometimes it is the expiration date also. Just means it may not have the same desired effect.
So is your company officially up and running now, or is everything tied into the launching of the book, the product being ready to roll out the shelves?
Yeah, I mean, we're on shelves. We're manufactured. We're ready to go. You can find us at www.true7cbd.com. I actually, I'm going to give a code to the HNC listeners for 20%
All right,
off.
you guys about to listen to this. What's the percentage off?
20% off for all HNC listeners.
20% off?
Yeah.
And they can order online.
So they can order online, www.true7cbd.com. But you're going to need to use the code HNC7. HNC7.
That makes a nice T-shirt.
Put it on a T-shirt.
HNC7. You guys hear that? HNC7, 20% off. And what's the expiration on that code?
Well, you know, so should we do an amount? Should we do a certain amount of usages of the code, or should we have it for a certain period of time? I'll let you.
Certain period of time.
Okay, so we'll do it 30 days from when the podcast launches.
Okay. Podcast.
Actually, this one is going to go live tomorrow. So we'll do it until the end of. Well, yeah, it's about the same. I was going to say until the end of April.
Because tomorrow is the 31st. So yeah, so the end of this 30 days, basically.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's good.
Is that long enough for you?
I would say 60 days would be better.
Okay, you listen. You love your audience. I like
Absolutely.
it.
60 days would be better, because people tend to listen different ways. With all these things going on with the coronavirus and COVID-19, more people are watching that, and then so CBD may come in handy. But I'm just thinking, everybody's the listeners are there, but they're focused in different ways. So right now I'm looking at my audience and I'm going, okay, what's the best way to grab your attention right now? And I think this is one of the best ways to grab your attention.
So HNC7, that code 20% off will be good until May 31st.
May 31st. All right, my man, Tavarus. All right, Tavarus. And on closing, what would you like to say to the audience?
Well, first off, I want to thank you for having me here today. It's been an honor to be a guest here. And what I would say is just, first and foremost in this climate, take care of yourself first and foremost. And by taking care of yourself, you're taking care of others. The show is about mental, physical, spiritual, financial, and health. While we have a little bit of downtime, take inventory of all of those aspects. Think about how you're doing from a mental standpoint, physical standpoint, spiritual standpoint, financial standpoint, and overall health. And right now you have an opportunity, to reset and kind of get some things under control. So take an inventory there. And if there's anything that True 7 can do to benefit you, if you feel like, presentation skills coaching is something you need, podcast coaching, we're here for you. And also, please fraternize, www.true7cbd. HNC listeners, you have a 20% off code for the next 60 days until May 31st. Thanks for listening.
Awesome. All right, so what I'm going to say is I'm going to make this a little bit sweeter deal. So since we got this now for 60 days, we will go ahead and add that to our exit. So on the next 60-day next podcast, that code will be listed on the exit. So everyone will be able to hear that.
Hey, that's awesome. I appreciate that.
No problem at all. All right, Tavarus, I do appreciate you joining us today at HNC Let's Talk Podcast. And again, look forward to having you on the show again pretty soon. Just let us know what your schedule is like. I know you're busy because you got 3 business going on. You don't actually have 4.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, but we will definitely talk in August for sure. I'll be putting together a book launch tour, and HNC would definitely be part of it.
Awesome. Thanks again for joining us at HNC Let's Talk Podcast. Everyone have a great afternoon.